Well, here's my 2003 Crown Victoria, and one day it just would not start. And I sprayed starting ether into the intake, and boom, it started right up for a second until the ether ran out. So I scanned the ODB code, and I got P1237, which indicates secondary failure of the fuel pump driver module. Here we are in the trunk of the car, and if we pull back over here, we can see we've got our switch here for the impact, and there's a reset on there. If you're ever in an accident, you need to reset that. And here's our fuel pump driver module. To take the cable out of the fuel pump driver module, you can see there's a little tab right there, and you press it, and that's the lock. Okay, we know the problem's either the fuel pump driver module or the fuel pump itself. The way we diagnose this is we bypass the fuel pump driver module and jumper it to make it to where all the power goes to the fuel pump. And if the car doesn't start, then we know it's the fuel pump. So you can see I jumpered the pink wire and the white wire. It's the top row there. And then on the other side, we got the black wire and the brown wire. You can see the brown wire with the white stripe and the black wire are jumpered together. And I used 14 gauge wire, jumper that up there. When you turn the key, see where the car starts. Here's where the fuel pump resides. You can kind of see it looks pretty good and clean. And the only thing is there's the exhaust pipe right here. And you know, it doesn't look bad. It looks like I could possibly get this thing up, move it over, and get it out without even touching the exhaust pipe. But you know, I go looking on some of these other videos of people doing this, and they either removed a couple of strap hangers to move this thing over an extra inch or so to give a little more clearance, or B, just took a ratchet strap and strapped the thing over to the wheel to just force it out of the way without doing and just using the rubber hangers give to give access some room here. Strap and put it along the exhaust pipe, and I pushed my feet and pulled the strap tight, and you can see that it's given us an extra maybe 3/4 of an inch of clearance, so I should be able to get it out with that. These bolts come out very easily with just like an 8mm ratchet. I took out the bolts, gently pried this thing up, it came loose, and it's a little difficult getting it out. And the main thing that seems to be holding up is this cable right here that goes up on top of the gas tank. It seems to be very, very tight. Here's the high quality parts fuel assembly I purchased. This one says ECCPP. And anyway, it's got the sender unit. It looks like it needs to be some assembly required. Got the cables and everything. Came with some gaskets and 2 clips. I noticed it already had the gasket in it, so it's like maybe I got an extra gasket. You can see the new fuel pump assembly. And I guess this is where the sender unit arm would go. Now I also, as like a plan B, got another cheaper one that doesn't have the sender unit, because I wasn't too sure whether I was going to just try to assemble it up in the car without taking everything out and not cutting all, or trying to reroute all the wires and everything. I thought that might be a lot easier if I could do it that way. I don't think this plan's going to come through there, because I can't really pull the assembly out very well because the wire tucked underneath the top. But it looks like I'm not going to be using this plan, but you can kind of see it's got two things here, this, that, pump, gasket, and the little bag that goes on the bottom. Looking at the replacement unit a little bit more, this is the cable that goes along the top, one I'm having trouble with. We can see it comes up about 10 or 11 inches, has a clip that seems to be clipped like that. And then it goes up a little bit further, has that kind of a clip. And then we've got our connector. You can see there's a locking tab on the top that you'd have to press down with your thumb, and it's pretty stiff. It's going to take a lot of pressure, and I'm going to have to try to get on top of the fuel tank and unclip the factory one and then replace it with this one. Got the car jacked up, the wheels hanging down. Let's go take a look in here, and hopefully you can see what's going on. Here's the cable, the long cable that goes along, and the clip is, or the connector's right up here on the top, and then the first little clip is right there. So anyway, my mission is to undo that little clip and get that thing free, and then I can just cut the wire at the gas tank because I have a new sender unit. Okay, oh man, I finally got that stupid thing off. Well, getting this cable off was no picnic. It was took me, like I say, a long time to get this stupid thing off. And here's the trick. Like I had like a nut pick. I was trying some other tools, but this one worked pretty well. Got the nut pick and managed to jam it on in there. Pull down the tab, and then I could grab this thing and wiggle it back and forth and finally get it out. But it was an hour-long job, and I started to think maybe it'd be easier to take the gas tank, or drop the gas tank. Okay, now that I disconnected the connector on the top, I can just cut these lines because it's going to be a lot easier. Okay, here's a tool I got here. It's fairly cheap. It looks like the one I'm going to need is this light blue one that says 3/8 of an inch. Okay, there's our coupler, and I have a drain pan underneath it. So I'm going to, I've already kind of twisted the fuel line to make sure that it's not stuck, and I'm going to push on the fuel line, push on the blue thing, and then disconnect the fuel line, but it's a two-hand job, so I have to put the camera down. What a disaster! These cheap piece of junk plastic tools, it did not work. I mean, I spent more than an hour and it did not work at all. And I'm going to take the advice from the video from I think it's 50s Kid, where he says you need a metal tool. And I got this one, it was like, less than $8. And it looks like a nice solid metal tool. And like I say, it's 3/8 of an inch is the one size I need. So anyway, I got my fingers crossed. Well, the fuel line is disconnected using the new metal tool, and the most important thing was more pulling than pushing. Of course, you want to like have one hand grasp up here with your thumb. You're pushing like crazy, but the real thing is you have to really pull like a maniac on the flexible fuel line to get it off. That's where you need to concentrate. And now we can see our final cable. It's this one that goes up here. And it goes up on top of this black piece of metal. And I'm touching the connector with my finger right here. But I'm going to have to reach up here and disconnect the lock and unsnap that baby. Okay, success. We got the old unit out. And I just thought I'd point. So when I reached up underneath there, this connector was pointed towards the front of the car. You just kind of get a little thumb in there and you just wiggle it and pull. And sometimes wiggling's more important to kind of like break the stuck seal, get it a little bit freed. And this baby came out. I took it up over top of the differential, but you probably could have gotten it down behind the differential too, but it seemed to come out pretty easily going over the top. Just wanted to show you the difference between the original. It's a nice metal hose here, nicely enclosed. This thing's much cheaper looking. Got a little plastic hose, but I'm sure everything will work. And then here's the float. And basically it looks like this float will snap or go in the center thing, then snap in these two clips. Everything's put back in. And since I'm not routing above the fuel tank, I'm right above along the bottom of the car. See, they have one of those little metal clips. It's not too good. That clip's not going to stay there, but I put some cable ties, those nylon cable ties, put one up here, one up there. I'm going to put them all along because we don't want these cables to come down and hit the exhaust. Sure to take the old cable and give it a good pull and rip it on out of there. For a second there, I was trying to connect the old connector to the connector, and that would have been a disaster. Here's another shot to show what it looks like on in there when it's all connected and pushing until it snaps. She started right up, only took a few seconds, but you see we got the check engine light on here, so I got my ODB scanner in here, And we got to clear all the codes. And it says we got one fault pending. 1, 2, 3, 7. Okay, so now we're going to scroll down. Erase. Erase, yes. Erase done. Oops. Scan. Well, anyway, the check engine light's off. So, success. Okay, I'm going to use this rebuild kit to rebuild the original factory sender unit. And of course, I have to start off with by repairing the wires I had to cut to get out. These are, of course, the wires that went up to the top of the fuel tank, and the only thing I could do was cut them. So now I'm going to repair them, but I'm not going to use butt splices. I'm not going to use any other type of connector. I'm going to solder these things. And the key thing to look at is the use of heat shrink tubing. I got 3 itty-bitty little pieces of heat shrink tubing that'll go over each individual wire. And I got one big piece that'll go over all of them, and I'll probably use a bunch of tape. But heat shrink tubing's pretty cheap, and it's really good stuff. Here's a better look at the factory fuel pump and the replacement. Everything looks pretty good. The connector looks about the same. This is kind of fancy. We're going to replace it maybe just a cheap piece of rubber. And the bottom part looks to be an exact match. So we got a metal strap here, some tie wrap, and looks to be pretty easy and straightforward. Well, we got it partially disassembled. I removed a 7mm bolt right here, a small socket, and then we have this connector. See, there's a little locking tab right there, and I had to press it into this little hole right there to get the locking tab. And as I was pressing that down there, I kind of took this screwdriver I got in my hand here and just pried a little on one side, pried on the other side, and it came up pretty good. So now we just have this flexible hose. Here's the upper nipple, this little piece of plastic. So basically, I just give it a little cut, very gentle cut, and it cut very easily. And now everything's free. Best fit. I'm looking at this hose. Right now it's 2.5 inches long, and it's just a little tight fit. And you can see that there's quite a long nipple here. There's no danger of being too short. So I'm going to cut 1/8 of an inch off of that. Okay, here we go. Looking pretty good here. You see I got a line at the bottom. And then we got the plug in here. And I made sure, I did this one first, tighten it up, and then put the fuel pump on. Fit pretty tightly. I might not even needed the hose clamps, but I did the hose clamps, making sure to get out of the way. Right now you can't even get to it to screw on it, but you want to get out of the way so it doesn't hit these wires. So I want to get it off the side there. On this side there appears to be lots of room without interference, so that's a pretty good angle there. Okay, the last part of the equation is installing this plastic bag. Let's take a look at it. Kind of see there's like a rubber, kind of a soft rubber gaskety kind of a thing. You can see there's a hole in the top, and it's kind of got one-way prong sticking up to where you push this thing on and it doesn't come off. And here we can kind of see the hole, the big hole, where the rubber gasket would go into, and this metal stud coming up that would be locked to it. So it's just you push on it, and it's a one-way locking mechanism. Before trying to put the bag on, remove this piece of plastic. There's a plastic cap in here, and remove that to have a nice open hole. There, bolt everything up there, put a new cable tie in there on this little hose, and now make sure you mount the new gasket and experiment around till you find a position to where it doesn't block any of the holes and looks nice and round.